Yeah, they keep saying that, but
I'd love to. One of us needs to have like a screen session with you at some point to kind of figure out what the deal
Now,
is.
where are you switching your mic?
I check it in Discord, and I also check it in the system settings.
Okay.
In Discord, you should be able to just directly apply and just say
Pick
like,
the correct
"I
one.
want this mic specifically," and so
Yeah.
You got a little drop down
Input
menu.
device. What's your input device listed as in Discord?
It's listed as default Tonar TC30 audio device.
Reach
why
around
it's not
your
picking-
pop filter and tap on the gray part of that microphone.
You did earlier.
Oh, that ain't it.
No, it's not. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. It's got to be his laptop mic or his webcam mic. You know.
Weird. Laptops just suck for podcasting.
Bill, quick
Yeah.
question.
Can you share
Have
your
you had-
screen, Charles?
Have you had a chance to listen to the Popey podcast?
No, I've been off since.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because when I was doing it, I used Craig again, right? But you know, when it comes to downloading, all the different tracks,
Yeah.
it will let you download a combined track where it will do some of the audio editing for you. Yeah, and the normalizing and all this kind of stuff. They put it as on a red thing, meaning that it's experimental or whatever.
Well, it means it
But
has
I
to do
use-
the processing inside of Firefox.
So yeah, but basically I tried it out, and actually I thought it worked quite well. Now, obviously, when I shared this on Late Night Linux, Joe Ressington was like, "Oh, the audio shit," but I mean, he always thinks the audio shit. So I'll just be interested if just to listen to the audio at some point. No rush.
You know
or
what?
anything.
Somebody needs to take the piss out of him, honestly. He uploads his stuff. Yeah, it sounds
Somebody
the same all
did.
the
He
time.
got fired.
He uploads his stuff in mono, and it's always just very... he probably thinks that's what makes his so much better than everybody. But you know what? If your stuff is so much better than everybody else, and I don't care that I'm streaming, put out a tutorial and show us how to do
that's
it.
exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said. I said, you know what? I would pay for that course on audio editing by Joe Ressington. And he actually replied saying, I have been tempted to do that.
Well,
Because he was mentioning, and I was kind of like, look, man, I'm just a noob, man. I mean, this is like...
I mean, I would love to see it.
Season 2, episode 4. Do you know what I mean?
company
I'm not going to be that fantastic at it. But...
That was making classes.
Yeah, so if you whenever, just have a listen and just tell me how good or bad you think the Craig processing was.
What you saying, Joe?
Well, he previously worked for that company that was actually making Linux courses online, Linux Academy.
Yeah, but I think it was just doing the shows with.
That was
Chris
still
and
just
them.
Jupiter Broadcasting shows
Yeah.
through them. No, I thought they were actually working on courses too.
I don't remember them ever saying anything like that, but I mean, I could be wrong. And then that there was a short period of time before a cloud guru bought them out, and then from what I understand, it just turned into nothing.
Well, Cloud Guru didn't understand what was going on there, so they essentially gave Jupiter Broadcasting back.
Yeah, I don't think they had any interest in podcasts, especially those about Linux, when, I think the cloud business is probably pretty insular.
So, I mean, I saw a Linux Unplugged one today.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
I haven't listened.
No, but I mean, but it's not been coming up in my RSS, which is interesting.
I haven't listened to them in quite a while because it's almost always mintCast anymore, and I don't know.
Well, the thing I find is that it's a bit fake. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you mean Americans feign a lot of positivity, that we're a little bit cheesy all the time, and yeah. Yeah,
it is a
sorry
little
about
bit
that.
kind of like I am a bit kind of, I mean, nothing. It is not that everything has to be dark, grey, and sarcastic and ironic and whatever. But the forced positivity is annoying.
For what it's worth, I listen to his podcasts for the people he has on, not necessarily him. He's fine, but I mean, when he did this thing recently, when it was like, and I'm sorry to get into specifics, but like he did a thing where he was trying to like use KDE Plasma, and like for what it's worth, just listening to him his talk about like for the people he has, his views on like how he uses Linux and stuff, like he's just the most. That Luddite show he did was probably the most apt like description, because it was just like silly how attached he gets to seemingly the most like simplistic things. But anyway, I was a subscriber to their Patreon for a while. Like I really like the shows and I like the hosts he has on, but a lot of times it's more about those people than, and he willingly admits that. I mean, he's not the expert in really anything.
He got pissed on one episode and he started going off. Somebody must have really shit on his parade, because he started going off on this whole people giving people crap about using Arch, and they've been famously using that Arch server out in the garage, and they do a thing where they'll update it like once a year, and it's always this huge. They'll play this music from, I think it's from some game show, and it's always a huge shock that everything upgraded and everything works. Oh my gosh, that's not supposed to happen. It's Arch, And somebody's been giving him shit, I guess. I think it was what's the guy from Fedora that's on there a lot. I mean,
which show specifically?
Unplugged. And the show started with him going on a rant about that, and then Nate, is that his name? The guy from Fedora.
I'm not sure I listened to that one, honestly.
He
Linux Unplugged on Jupiter Broadcasting?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't listen to Jupiter Broadcasting. Sorry, I was talking about Joe Rez.
Oh.
Yeah.
We were off
but
track.
I do know which one you mean, because the one he was talking about KDE Linux, and I know that he was, because my man wants to be XFCE to the, till I die.
No, I can't listen to Jupiter Broadcasting. I'm sorry. I can't stand any of them, and I know that's I don't mean that as a personal thing, because I'm sure they're all wonderful people to like sit and have a beer with, but just the style of their back and forth and stuff just kind of annoys the hell out of me. So
well, I had to give up a few, mostly the American shows, because I just find it to be cheesy, that the way they get sidetracked and then back and forth on their little overtly positive being. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. Moving on.
Let's just end this. Nothing good is going to come of this.
Do they still do mattress ads?
I pay for the no ads, so I don't know.
What, like the Casper ones or something?
Yeah. You might have to stop paying all these people if you want to get a new truck bill.
I know. So we should probably do another one of those episodes. Was you here when we did an episode on? We tallied up all of our
the services. Yes, yeah. I remember that one.
My God, that was an eye opener, to be sure. And I don't think it's gotten much better, if at all. But it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. It gets out of your control, and there's tools out there. You think there's tools out there to help you, but really there's nothing.
You mean like subscription fees that, like, if you don't pay attention?
Yeah, I mean, because it's all nickel and dime. You don't.
All the streaming services that he pays for.
Yeah.
Now, I'll admit I've got nothing overlapping where you're paying twice for the same service, because you got a deal on something over here where you get this other thing for free or whatnot. But there's
that's good news then for a second, isn't
it? Yeah, I can smell the sarcasm, but yeah, it. But
what you can smell is sarcasm and judgment. That's the other
judgment.
thing.
Yeah, most of it is services I don't even get any value out of with the streaming services, because I hardly watch anything. I bet I could stop paying for everything except YouTube Premium, and nobody would notice. At least
100%. You can. The amount of, if I have to sit down and figure out how much I watch each service.
Well, you could flip that around and say that it would be a guarantee within hours you would have someone complaining that if you didn't have YouTube
I'd
Premium.
have somebody downstairs representing everybody else upstairs. Dad.
I'm here on behalf of...
I had to watch an ad, Dad. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
I know, right? Well, we've tried watching...
I can't live in a place like this. I
To
can't
be fair,
live with this.
To be fair, have you tried watching any of the free streaming services where you have to watch ads? It is pretty intolerable.
Most of them I can block ads on. Now, YouTube, on the other hand, they make it really, really difficult to block ads.
That and their
I got to tell you about the greatest piece of software. I don't know what. I know I missed this show. You did this a while back. Imagine told me, but the greatest piece of software, one of them in my life, because I watch a lot of YouTube, is called SmartTube, and it installs on my Fire TV 4K or 4K Max devices that I have on all three of my televisions. And it is magical. No ads for YouTube. I don't feel bad. They don't need my money. If I want to support a creator, I'll buy a coffee mug or something. But my God, I visited my 81-year-old dad who likes TV and is pretty good with technology, and I installed it. And I couldn't stand the commercials on YouTube that he was watching. I was like,
Yeah, no,
offended.
YouTube commercials are the worst I have ever seen in my life. You can never watch anything or do anything because right in the middle of it, there will be like, some shit. So me and my son now,
Yeah, if
we've
you try
been
to
doing
watch
we've been watching a lot of guitar videos and tutorials recently, and it's just like, just as you're getting it, it's like, now there's an ad for KFC. You're just like,
like right in the middle
try to
of the
watch
sentence.
a 1 minute long video and there's more ads than there is video and you can't skip.
Well,
Yeah,
is
so
that
I
to
mean,
sell
I use
the
Brave.
ads or to sell the premium service? You got to wonder, honestly.
Yeah. Or always to sell the premium service because after a while you're just like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to pay for this. Though Brave, at least, does the same thing for me on my mobile and stuff like that, where it'll cut the ads and all sorts of stuff, and it still keeps the algorithm. Because I remember there was an app called NewPipe. I don't know if it's still around. Probably still
Yeah, I
is.
still use it.
Yeah,
I use it.
and the issue with it was that you couldn't import your favorites, or you could, but it was a real ball ache to do it, and so therefore you wouldn't necessarily get all the recommendations and things. So you'd have to look.
Revanced.
Okay, well, okay.
Well,
it's easy to import your favorites into NewPipe. So you just export. You got to go to Google on your laptop or desktop, export some kind of little file, and then import that into NewPipe. Works fine.
You don't have a button on there though that says import my stuff.
It's a couple of steps. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're tech savvy enough to want to avoid ads, it's worth spending 5 minutes.
I mean, the concept is that you're starting from scratch. It's
Yeah.
not your account. It's a completely anonymized account. So, yeah. Are we going to proceed without Charles or?
Charles is here, just his camera's not turned on.
Oh, the second you
Yeah,
said
no,
that,
he's
he
not.
ducked out.
We got to get that mic fixed. It just sounds really bad. No offense, man. It just is what it is.
He's gone
you know?
now. Well, that's cool.
And now Majid stepped away. So who's hosting today? Jim?
I did it. I think I did it last time. So Jim, if you want to do it, it doesn't matter to me. So
Me.
you don't have to. You don't have to. We
I
offer
can
you the.
guarantee that Jim has done it less than anyone else.
Yes, that's my concern.
I'm happy to do it. I don't care. If you guys, someone else
I'm
wants
sure
to do it.
none of us mind doing it. I'm just offering
I
Jim
don't
the
care at all.
opportunity to do it because
Yeah,
he hasn't.
it doesn't
done
matter.
If you're not comfortable,
I'm
though,
going to
I'd-
respectfully beg off until I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if we ever get into a topic that I suggested, I have no problem. I could go on a rant for 10 or 20 minutes on any number of topics, but introducing this.
No, if we find a topic of yours, or if you pick a topic and put it in
Yeah.
the innards, then you probably shouldn't be hosting
Okay.
because then you're basically the only one talking the whole time.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
That kind of sucks. So this should not be Joe, in other words. Ooh, speaking of which, where are my notes?
I like that answer.
Why? Why is this unusual?
All right, I will do the hosting then, since...
Steam client.
Are we going to proceed?
Does somebody want to ping him and find out if he's still trying? Because it's like 2:20 now, so...
I wish people would use their real name, which I know that's not internet etiquette.
PDX, Mr.
Yeah.
PDX.
Senor PDX. Do you guys ever use Steam to install non-game software?
Yes.
So I was just thinking like that could be a way to install something
There
I'm
he is.
trying to... No.
Yeah, he just stepped back in, but I don't think his camera's on yet.
Charles, if you can hear me, we need to
You
get
know what I've
something
used?
going
There
here.
are very few people, but Brew. Okay, let's go.
Well, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get it started, and
Do it.
somebody sent something somewhere. Oh, okay. He said he's gonna bow out. Hold on, he's typing something else. Camera's not working now, he said. Okay. We'll do the 3, 2, 1, and then 20 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Looks good. All right. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 466, recorded on Sunday, August 17th, 2025.
Back from Florida, I'm Joe.
Enjoying a much-needed 4-day weekend, I'm Bill.
Back for more Linux goodness, I'm Eric.
Go ahead, Jim.
That was for Troy.
I may have solved my over-the-air DVR woes, and I am Jim.
Cool.
I'm joining the CashOS hype train. I'm Majid.
First up in the news, Linux Mint 22.2 Zara beta release and the Linux Vendor Firmware Service, otherwise known as LVFS project, is seeking increased sponsorship and CashOS Top Distro Watch rankings. In our innards section, Joe goes hard on some 3D printing. And check this out, Charles gives us an overview of Passkey. Unfortunately, Charles can't be here, so you'll have to hear it from one of us. And finally...
Yes, I will pretend to be Charles.
Right on. And finally, in Vibrations from the Ether, feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/show notes. First up, the news. Who wants to take this one?
I can talk.
All right.
So this is all about the Mint Monthly News, which is that Linux Mint 22.2 Zara has had its beta release. Now, I know that, as a podcast, it's not best idea to be reviewing beta releases, but it is something that we need to talk about. So it's on the Linux Mint blog via Good Old Londoner. It still has some critical bugs, and so the team have made it particularly clear it's only for testing purposes and it's to help Linux Mint fix issues prior to the stable release. Once it is released, when its stable release does occur, there will be some upgrade instructions that will be on the website. If, for example, you want to go and download it now and try it out, as I thought I would do, it's not necessarily as easy. They don't make it particularly easy on the website to, just click and download a beta or a release candidate. And I think that's specifically done on purpose to, do you necessarily want every Tom, Dick and Abdullah downloading it? No, but if somebody's tech savvy enough to find it on the forums or wherever, then, that person should be okay as a tester. And so, so in the end, I managed to find it. There are a couple of changes. Well, there's a couple of changes. Some new X apps. There's a better login screen. There's Hypnotics, the TV player, now has a theater mode. There's another X app called FingWhip, which is dedicated to fingerprint authentication, which I think is pretty cool because I've got quite a few laptops and devices that have fingerprint thingies, and I've never managed to get Linux working with it. Now, apparently, am I right? It's something to do with the fact that they're very proprietary and they're very specific drivers, and
it's just always been really, really hit and miss. I had a laptop years ago that had a fingerprint reader, and it seemed like it would work for a little while, and then there would be a kernel upgrade, and then something would it wasn't worth, in my mind, dealing with. So I don't know. I think it's been the same for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's some patching done of libadwaita. The support for it has been added to Mint Y, Mint X, and Mint L themes. Some changes to the accent colors. There's a general more bluey interface, which is interesting because I'm one of these weirdos that actually quite liked the whole green everywhere back in the day. But anyway, that's just me, I suppose. There's some, as I said, some of the artwork stuff is available on GitHub. So improvements to the software manager, and so I personally have not used it yet because, as I said, I've literally just downloaded it. Have any of you guys?
Unfortunately, no. I meant to get it installed I was going to daily drive it because that's what I did when 22.1 came out, but
I got it. I downloaded it and just sort of played around with it. I looked at the release notes and just sort of went through the line items to see if there was a huge difference. And there's some things that are noticeable, but in Mint fashion, a lot of it is going to be quality of life improvements, things that are not necessarily like in your face. It's just stuff that's meant to make it run better. So
yeah. And the thing I always find interesting about when you have these point releases, and I think I mentioned it before as well, is that you always think to yourself, it's just a point release. I mean, they're not even changing the base. It's still going to be the LTS of Ubuntu and whatever. And there's always more in these releases than you would expect and you'd think. And there's always a lot more work done. And at what point does something being polished make it boring? I don't know, but it's boring in a good way sometimes. I'm not having, sitting on the edge of my pants doing some Arch nonsense that,
I was just going to say, even Arch has gotten boring.
Yeah, okay, you know what? When that is going to be when I try that Arch install script, then we'll have a discussion about it, right? But as of now, I'm still not sold on that as an idea. But anyway. But yeah, there is quite a bit more here than you'd think. I still think that Mint is designed for more traditional, computer monitor, mouse, keyboard type of setup rather than a laptop.
Is it Linux for humans?
No, it's supposed to be Ubuntu for humans.
Oh,
that was the joke, wasn't it?
Oh, wow.
Because Ubuntu was
Shots
Linux for human beings, and then Linux Mint was supposed to be Ubuntu for human beings. That's an old one, man. That's from like 2012 or something. Where have you been?
The memory is the first thing to go. Actually, it's the second thing to go. We're not going to talk about the first thing that went.
Okay.
They make pills for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the similarity. I haven't tried the new beta. I'm still getting, all my programs and settings set up for my recent jump from 21.3 to 22.1. I want everything almost the same, or almost the same. I don't want to have any surprises. It's taken me multiple days because I don't want to do everything in a mad rush.
I know.
Yeah,
what
no,
you mean.
exactly. And this is my point about it's boring, but in a good way, because it's the exact what you want. You just want it to just get out of the way. Don't be so massively different that I can't get on and do the stuff that I want to do.
But I think that's a good thing because when it matters,
No, it is a good thing.
When it's mission critical, you can rely on this software now. Right. That's where we're at, and I think that's a good place to be. Even with
that's exactly my point.
When you're a derivative of a derivative, you're still basing your software on something that is reliable and you can count on it working every time you fire it up and every time you do a apt update. And that's really saying something because there was a time when maybe that wasn't quite so much the case.
So this isn't necessarily a news episode, isn't it? But we've got a couple of news items actually.
The beta came out.
And
it demands mentioning.
Yeah.
So
I'm not
the other
sure
two. Well, the other two were just pretty quick, and I just thought they were worth mentioning. So the Linux vendor firmware service LVFS project is seeking increased sponsorship. If you haven't used LVFS, compared to the things you have to go through, the steps you normally have to take to update firmware, not just on your main device, like on the motherboard, but also just peripherals and other devices as well, anything that supports this service, it's a little bit of that Linux magic that is something you don't get anywhere else. And so it's one of those things that I just love that we have that like other systems don't. And so the interesting part of this to me is the creator, Richard Hughes, posted a blog entry about basically they're seeking increased sponsorship from the primary beneficiaries to ensure long-term sustainability and growth. While currently supported by Linux Foundation and Red Hat, the project's expanding demands necessitate additional funding to hire more staff, build redundancy, and fortify its infrastructure, transitioning to a model where major users contribute proportionally to the service's critical role in the open source ecosystem. So I just thought that was a really cool proposition where it's like, hey, it's almost like a little bit of pay to play where like if you're going to use this, which we want you to, you're providing a tremendous amount of value to your customers. And this isn't just on the desktop. This is also, server based as well. But any device you're using, the ability to use this service. And instead of going the route of one guy in a closet somewhere, or maybe not that, but I'm just saying one guy, creating this sort of foundational technology, this software that just kind of like languishes unsupported. They're basically putting some thought into this and saying, okay, great, we've got this really cool thing. Now, how do we make sure it lasts? And so the sustainability challenges, the current funding is from the Linux Foundation for the hosting, and then the Red Hat is the staff time. So Richard works for Red Hat, but that's really not enough, right? One person and two different organizations supporting this, this project, and so he's calling for sponsorships where major vendors that are heavily utilizing LVFS are urged to provide financial support or dedicate developer resources. And that's usually how companies can support open source projects, which is, okay, you can either give us money so that we can get more people, or you can just have one of your staff developers or maybe even someone in a position you create to work on this for us. And then there is the funding purpose, which is, again, to hire additional staff, ensuring project continuity, allowing for current staff to take a break every now and then, that's nice. And then just contribute more to the product to keep getting it, to keep improving it. And the fair use quota system, which I think is really, really sweet. And I think this is something we should tease out in other places as well. But it's a tiered quota system that with larger users expected to contribute more to the project, which just makes perfect sense. Because not only are they using more resources, but you'd think in theory, because they're larger organizations, they would have more financial means to contribute. This means that there's a minimal impact on smaller vendors, which is great because there's a generous free associate quota with 50,000 downloads and 50 uploads monthly. So basically, for the hosting side of it, there's incentives and restrictions. So non-sponsoring vendors will gradually face limitations, including removal of logos from the main page, loss of detailed analytics, restricted API access, and limited automated uploads. And then there's a phased implementation. So you're doing these things, but you're not just saying we're doing them right now. We're actually going to phase them in. And then that lets people adjust to it and decide whether they agree with it or not, or also propose their own potential changes or whatever. So I just thought this was cool to include simply because, I mean, yes, LVFS is super cool and one of those differentiating factors, but also just this idea that you pay to play, right? You pay for what you use. And if this is a foundational thing to your project or to the service you offer, then you just should, budget for that. So
who all has signed up to this?
Well, LVFS has, if you go to their page, the vendors, the hardware vendors that have already supported this. So Dell, and there's a whole sort of litany of hardware companies specifically that have signed on so that they provide their firmware files to the hosting service. And then that enables, if you have that device, when LVFS runs, it will see that you have this hardware, check your current, version, and then say, okay, here's an updated version if you want. And it's as easy as it's usually integrated directly into the software manager that you're using on that particular desktop environment or distribution. Mm-hmm. And so it'll just pop up as like it's another update. And so GNOME Software Center, for example, will just show you on the updates there is a firmware update, and not only for the motherboard itself, but then peripherals, other things as well that are traditionally much more difficult to update. So, yeah,
cool.
All right.
So I know you put this in.
Go for it.
Yeah, but I wanted to nick it mainly because I have been using it. That's why. So CachyOS has topped the DistroWatch's rankings. So this is by Linuxiac, and it's on quite a few other places as well. There has to be a public health warning, though, when you say something like this. Yeah. Yes. So DistroWatch, for the two people that don't know who are listening to this, it is supposed to be taken as a barometer of the popularity of different Linux distributions. Now, all it actually does is, in a sense, count up the amount of times that the home website of a distribution is clicked on, and then will then spit out and say that
from that website
website will then has had X number of people clicking onto it, and then this one has this one has that, and then it makes a ranking based on that. And generally speaking, you normally find Mint near the top, you get Ubuntu near the top. Randomly, MX Linux was for a long time, but I think
about 20 years ago, Magia was on there for like 2 or 3 years straight.
Yep.
Remember that?
And so,
it's just sort of a loose barometer, like Magia's saying. Like it's not a specific measure; it's just sort of a broad strokes.
I suppose you could kind of say that this is what the mood music is like within the wider Linux community, you could say that as an example. And so the fact that this relatively new, I know it's not new, but relatively new Arch-based distro has, got all the way to the top that people are interested in, is something I suppose that's worth discussing. You could, if you were to take the most positive spin on it, you could say that, well, it's a fantastic, it's got great optimization, specialized, it's got custom kernels, specialized CPU schedulers. It's very much focused on performance. and as I said, aggressively optimize packages. But I think the final point is the point where I think it's necessarily gone up, and that is rapid surge in popularity driven by gamers and Linux enthusiasts. Well, I think the gamers bit is important. If you look at some high, inverted commas, high profile YouTube creators who are switching to Linux, like PewDiePie and some others, which I don't know the names of, J2Sense or something like that. Anyway, these guys are not only switching to Linux, they're switching to Arch, and they're switching to things like Kashi, Garuda, things like that. They're using Hyperland, like literally the exact opposite of what any of us would recommend anybody who is new to Linux to do. Well, okay, maybe not exactly opposite, but it's not the general, isn't it? We always want to talk about Mint, or we talk about Ubuntu, we talk about Debian phase,
but we're not gamers.
All this kind of stuff. That's generally what I said. And now you've got all these people who are, not all these people, but people who are seeing these creators, and then they're going, well, let me check out that distro. And I think that is the main reason for why it has risen up the charts. I don't think people are generally using it. Having said that, I am using it myself, but not because I'm a gamer, but because some of my hardware is a little bit long in the tooth, and I want to try and make using it as good an experience as possible.
The value proposition of Kashi is that they pretty aggressively too. They optimize things. So they have a kernel that's optimized. They've some of their packages are optimized, and really it comes down to if you're running it, and to your point, on something where you notice a certain amount of slowness, this usually will show you like an increase in performance just simply because of the way that it's been optimized, and the certain compile flags, and like they're doing all sorts of different things. The scheduler, like they're really digging into the nitty gritty, and so it's there is certainly the merit of there's a popularity of just other people, notable people talking about Linux, and sort of Kashi's coming up in the conversation. But also I think for people that appreciate Arch and want something that is optimized specifically for desktop, because that's the thing about the Linux kernel and a lot of distributions is they're targeting the entire contingent of any kind of computer that can run, versus Kashi's a little more specific to like desktops and laptops, and like and performance for those specific things. So
quick question.
But it is funny that you have also jumped on that bandwagon.
Is Kashi an immutable OS?
No.
Okay, I was just wondering.
No, it's really just Arch, and they mess with the kernel, and there's some basic. They have a version of like browsers and like very common packages that they've optimized, but by and large, the majority of it is just normal. It's just like Endeavor or any of the other sort of Arch helper distributions, if you will.
I mean, I would say it's probably somewhere in between Manjaro and Endeavor. I would say. I mean, I don't know if that. I don't know.
But it still functions more. It's not Manjaro. The only reason I would say that that's not true is Manjaro has its own repositories, whereas Arch, Endeavor, Garuda, Kashi, they're all just mainline Arch, where it's just coming straight through. Yeah.
I mean, my point I'm just trying to say is that Endeavor really is just a graphical Arch. At least when I used it, there is still more.
I think I would go with what Majid said.
There's more of a learning curve to using Endeavor than there is for using Kashi. At least I found so far. Anyway,
Endeavor is kind of like that crossing guard that gets you halfway across the busy street and just says, "Okay, you're on your own," and then here comes cars coming each way, and you got to decide.
Yeah, and so that was the only reason I was saying that it was kind of because Manjaro, I think, consciously, subconsciously tries to kind of position itself as the Mint of the Arch world. I don't know if I'm getting that wrong, but they're very much trying to say that this is just plug and play. The fact that it's Arch under the hood is whatever, And so that was my reasoning. I agree with you. Manjaro has its own custom repos and things like that. For me, when I used Endeavor, it, apart from the problems that we talked about many times on the thing, it very much was. It expected you to know your shit.
Well, and it's the value proposition of a distro like Garuda and Endeavor is that you get a single bootable ISO that lets you pick the specific desktop that you want with a well used like an installer, like people that are used to using that installer. It's a known entity, so to speak. And then they have some like helper applications. So it's just like a sprinkle of like, we're changing certain things, or we let you pick, choose your fastest mirror, or we let you, it's real basic sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, yes, otherwise it's just like, here you go. It's just Arch. So, and Cashi's like that in the sense that it does install in an easier way than I think the Arch install script does. But it also goes a little further by actually tuning and doing more than just sort of letting you install it. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean,
That's
it's something
cool. So
I'm enjoying it. So
I want to hear you in a couple months. Like I appreciate that you enjoy it now, but I want to see what you think after you've run it for a while. So
yeah, I mean, the one thing that I always say about my distro hopping, as it were, is if everything's working really well, then I generally don't move. And so, interestingly, the two longest distros I've had in the last year have been Mint on this box, which is notable because I hadn't used Mint for a long time, and Aurora, which is one of the immutable, like Bluefin, but Bluefin is the GNOME version. And I found those were the two that I've had the longest in the last year, I'd say. So let's see how long Kashi goes. Anyway, this is apparently mintCast, not KashiCast, so we better move on.
All right. I think Bill's hosting, right?
Oh, and that's it. So that's it for the news, such as it was. Moving on to the Linux innards, and this is going to be all Joe, or well, pretty much Joe.
I hope not.
Well, getting into 3D printing, that's kind of your thing.
Well,
so I can ask a question from the beginning as well. But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So, why... Okay, what's the elevator pitch for 3D printing? Why bother?
Prototyping
if you have to sell
home.
it to someone.
Prototyping at home, you don't have to, rush out and buy different parts. You can make your own stuff. You can make toys for your kids if you want to. You can decorations for your house. You need to put up shelves. You can make brackets for it. Obscure parts that you're missing for something, you can make things like that.
Yeah, I think to me, if I were to answer that, especially the why, it is the fact that it gives the means of producing manufacturing a piece of whatever, right, in your own home. And that's something that you, besides woodworking or maybe metalworking, like you're kind of like taking raw materials and taking away, you know what I mean? This is additive versus destructive, which I think is
what he's saying is this is the closest that we're ever, well, for now, going to get to a Star Trek replicator in our homes.
Well, actually, what I was thinking was that, when he started saying the means of production, I was thinking means of production in the hands of the worker. That sounds awfully socialist to me.
Hey, I'm telling you, it's actually very interesting. And I was, so this whole, the discussion or the idea of having this be the innards bore out of a discussion yesterday on the roundtable where Jim and I were like hitting up Joe about like, okay, so and Jim specifically said like, if I want to get into printing, like, how do I do that? And then I sort of sidestepped and said, okay, the idea of like, currently most of the printers are a bit of DIY where you're kind of getting something, unless you're buying the more like expensive models, like it's modular. You decide on like what makes.
I'm going to stop you right there because 10 years ago I would have agreed with you.
Okay.
But like my write-up, I have it. The first part of that, most of your 3D printers these days are very Lego-like. You get them in like 2 maybe 3 pieces, and you put them together and it's ready to go in 15 minutes. Some of them, yes, even your lower cost ones and your more expensive ones, they come, you pull a bunch of stuff out, you
like the tape that
release
they
a
have
couple of
stuff.
screws.
Yeah.
The extra parts and stuff that's in the middle. You take all that out. You get all the excess cardboard and plastic off, and you plug it in, and you tell it to print something. It's
Okay, so that
literally
shows a
super
marked
easy.
like improvement, or I guess like refinement of what you, because when last time I looked, it's probably been that long, and it felt very like you gotta kind of know what you're getting.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, please continue. But that's where this idea came from, was because we were just sort of like talking about it anyway, and Joe was like, we talked for about a half an hour, and then we were like, this is all show content. So
Per
anyway,
usual, great show
Yeah.
content
yeah,
outside
right,
the
right,
show.
that no one heard.
No, because back in the day, it was very much if you wanted a 3D printer, even if you got a kit, you were basically building the entire thing yourself. And the good thing about that is, you were learning about everything. But
Weren't there some that you literally would have to print some of the parts of it when you
there
got
still
it?
are. There
Okay.
still are. Yeah. I mean, there are newer, complete DIY build at home mods that kind of are not mods, but DIY printers that kind of require you to already have a printer, but you need some skill to put those together. So
Gotcha. Okay, well then you start with what you write up, and I just want to give that context, but yeah, go for it.
okay, yeah, like I was saying, a lot of your newer ones, even your low cost ones, 15 minutes to get up and running. Now, if you're asking which printer to start with, this is a broad choice. There's a lot of options here, and some of that is um, dependent on how much money you have and what you're willing to put up with. Like, if money is no object and you don't have concerns with Bamboo's policies, like the fact that you have to be connected to their servers to print things and how they're changing things around to make it even more closed. So a lot of people think it's so that they can eventually make you have to pay a monthly fee to use your printer or something crazy like that. But Bamboo is kind of that new standard, especially when it comes to multi-material printing and lots of types of materials that you can print easily. Especially with like the Bamboo Lab H2D. But the reason I say that it's a good place for beginners is it's easy to set up and it's easy to print from what I've read, because I don't want to pay the price for it. The hard part comes with for that one comes with the slicing and deciding what to print where, in regards to different materials and different colors. But that is a $1,200 starting point. On the other hand, Bamboo recently dropped the price on their P1P to $399, but I think that's to make it more competitive with the Centauri Carbon. But when it comes to the P1P, you would still have to pay extra for the multi-material, which the Centauri Carbon doesn't have right now, of course. And more importantly, you would have to pay for the kit to get the enclosure that allows for more materials. And we'll talk some about materials and why you might need an enclosure in a little bit, especially if you guys have any questions about it. But like I was saying, this is for starting out, and I no longer use mine, but I would almost always suggest the bottom shelf ender, just like Leo said here. And that would be the Ender 3 line to a person that's new to printing and not necessarily sure that they want to stick with it long term. They are low cost, they are easy to set up, and they're easy to upgrade over time. Usually you can get them new for $150 to $250, depending on the sales and whether or not you're buying online. So like Micro Center usually has some good sales, and then you can get it sub $200. But if you keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace, you can usually pick up a deal. Maybe even on one that has been upgraded already. Like I just saw one on Facebook Marketplace today, the Ender 3 V2, not the SE or the KE, but the baseline V2, and it was $100. But I will say that getting them used like that does come with its own risks, because you don't know what's worn in and what's broken down and what you have to fix. So that's something you have to be prepared for. And it's I will say also that one of the reasons that I recommend the low cost Ender 3 V2, and yes, you get what you pay for, is the upgradability and the documentation from the community. I mean, it's one of the reasons that even though the Raspberry Pi has become a little bit more expensive, it's still something that I recommend just because the community is there and putting out free information on how to do various things with the printer. So any problem you come across, you can find someone else that had the same problem, and if they fixed it, how they fixed it, or anything like that, or help you to diagnose the issue. Like I was saying, they're easy to upgrade, easy to repair, and it'll teach you a lot about how 3D printers work. Now, granted, you're not building your own anymore these days, usually, but things are going to break. I mean, that's just the way it is. As you use it, things will break. I mean, you're going to look at nozzles, hot ends, extruders, PTFE tubing, motors, main boards, power supplies, fans, access rods, belts, beds. They all eventually go bad. And for some of them, it's good to keep extras on hand. Now, for the extras on hand when you're starting out, I would say that it's good to keep extra nozzles handy, extra belts handy. You won't need the belts very often, but when you do, you'll be happy that you kept a spare set around. And build plates. You will go through build plates. Even the glass ones you will eventually go through, but I do recommend switching to the magnetic ones as soon as you can if you start out with a glass build plate. A couple other things you'll need, the disposables, you need a cleaning kit close by, and either some hairspray or some glue stick, and a deburring tool for cleaning up prints. A deburring tool is actually one of those things that you don't think about at first, but it is extremely helpful. And for those that are currently screaming at me about this is for beginners. Now, with any printer, I think that the easiest material to get started with is going to have to be PLA. It's lower temperature printing plastic and usually fairly tolerant of mistakes. PETG being the next easiest, and it'll print on an unenclosed ender. We can get into the difference on that in a few minutes. I do plan to explain some about different materials, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. Now, for your first print, the printer usually comes with some kind of G-code, either on the device already or on a handy USB stick. Also usually comes with a small amount of filament. I would not use the tester filament in just my opinion. I would have a new spool ready and waiting, and I would print the first one with that. Now, before your first print, there are probably some things that you should do. Follow all the installation instructions. It's super easy on the Ender 3, but yes, follow all the steps. Next, level your bed. Many newer printers have auto bed leveling, especially on the Ender 3 line. I think it's still good to do that first level manually, especially if it has the tensioner screws in the corners. That way, you can verify that it's as close to true as possible before the auto bed leveling happens. And it's not that hard to do. Essentially, you home the whole thing, you slide a piece of paper under the nozzle and make sure that it barely catches, and you adjust it until it barely catches. Then you move to the next spot, do the same thing, move to the next spot. And usually the four corners and maybe the middle is good enough for that. Check, and before your first print, check and make sure the tension on all the belts is good. Just because it came from the factory doesn't mean that it's within spec. And then slowly move the print head on an Ender 3 up and down and make sure that there are no jags and burrs. If you have a Core XY, then you can do the same thing with the moving the build plate up and down. Home the device from the controls and make sure that everything is moving correctly. There's no strange sounds or anything like that. Next thing to do is follow the instructions of your device to load your material, making sure that your spool is also free moving. It should either be on some kind of filament holder that allows it to spin through the middle, or on a set of rollers, so that way that the spool moves easily. And you should also check and make sure that your filament isn't crossed over itself, so that way it won't bind when it's being pulled loose. It probably is a really good idea to print whatever G code that the company provided. Sometimes they'll provide 2 or 3 different things. Almost all of them come with some kind of benchy, which is a little test print boat. And so, like with the Elegoo Centauri Carbon that I have, it actually has a benchy that will print in 15 minutes, which is the first print that I did on that thing to test it. And yes, it's their G code and everything's set up for it, but that's kind of the point, to make sure that it's working the way that it's supposed to. And if that first print comes out good, then you're in a good position to move on. Now the Ender line, especially the Ender 3, they're slower printers than a lot of the others on the market right now, but it's still not terrible for how fast it goes. And it can be a good long-term printer if you're willing to put in the wrench time yourself and watch a lot of YouTube videos on what could be going wrong with your prints and how to fix them. Because eventually you'll make spaghetti. It will also teach you troubleshooting skills. And I haven't even talked about the Elegoo Centauri Carbon yet, but I think that is also a great printer for beginners. As we were talking earlier, this one, all I had to do was take out all of the parts and stuff that they had sent in the middle, all the tools and everything, take some cardboard off, release 3 screws which held the bed into place, and then plug it in and allow it to go through a 30-minute calibration that it has set up. And then I could start printing the items that they had sent. It actually was super easy to get it loaded and ready to go. Now, the next thing a new new person doing printing needs to learn is slicers. The easiest way to get things to print is to check the internet and see if people have already created the thing that you're looking to make. Now, Yegi.com is a good one for searching a varied amount of sites. Like all of the big sites are listed in there, and you can just do one search and it will go through all of them. Now, I also should give a shout out to like Thingiverse, because that's usually where I go to first to search for something. And everything on there is free. You can choose to donate to the creator if you want to. Now, at these sites, you find what you're looking for, and you can download either the STLs or the 3MF, depending on what the site allows for. And those are generic, like 3D images, and they're not made specifically for your printer. You need to slice them and make G-code that your specific printer can use. And the program that does that, like I said, it's called a slicer. Now, for the longest time, I used Cura, and for a good reason. The controls are simple and understandable and easy to find. It even has a search function if you know the name of the setting that you're looking for and don't know what the section it is in. So Cura makes it simple, to set the nozzle temperatures, which should be on the spool that you get, as well as the bed temperature, which is important for adhesion. You also need to worry about supports and cooling, which you will have to do some studying to understand what the settings need to be. It might be good for the first few prints to see how the stock settings work. When you tell the slicer what printer you have and what materials you are using, the settings will be populated except for supports. You can make changes to the settings based on how the print comes out. But I can make a whole nother show on the different settings that you can do within any slicer to change how materials print and make things better, make things worse. Now, recently, I did have to switch to Orca Slicer because, one, it works on Linux, unlike the Elegoo Slicer, which essentially is just a tweaked version of Orca anyway. It's a little more difficult to use, and some of the things are much more buried, like manually adjusting the temperatures for materials that don't quite match the settings for the listed materials in practice. but it's really great for connecting directly to my printer. I might switch back to Cura and just use the website to upload and print. The website provided by the Elegoo Centauri Carbon itself. It's hosted on the machine. But the next thing to talk about after the slicer is getting started making your own models. Now, there are a lot of 3D modeling tools. I would suggest Tinkercad for someone with zero experience or skill at 3D modeling, much like myself. I kind of suck at it, and I am aware. It has a lot of functions that can complicate things, but I tend to stick to the simple things that I can run by the numbers. Something important here is if you're making something for something in like the real world, get a caliper. Those things are awesome. Measure it out, figure it out in your head, get it into Tinkercad. And then download it, slice it, and print it. Now, the best things to do when starting out is to take other people's designs and modify them to your needs. That's a really good way to learn the process in Tinkercad or whatever other computer-aided drafting tool that you're using. But if you publish something that you have created that is based on someone else's stuff, remember to attribute and mark your object as a remix. It's the polite thing to do. Also, you have to check the licensing of their stuff and make sure that they allow for remixes. Now, to talk about materials, and you guys can jump in anywhere you want to here or ask questions. I think I'm only going to talk briefly about PLA, PETG, and ABS. PLA.
Quick question. How expensive are the materials?
Well, I do talk about that some too. PLA for a 1 kilogram spool is roughly $13 for the simple ones. But you got to remember that there's also fast PLA, there's PLA plus, there's PLA mixed with various other things like wood, and so the costs will vary based on that, and also by the company that's providing it. The more reputable companies, it's not as much of a problem now as it was a few years ago. But some of your less reputable companies, the 1.75 millimeter size of the filament itself, which is supposed to be uniform throughout the whole thing, wouldn't be precise, and it would cause problems with some extruders.
Okay.
So, but like PETG is usually about that same $13 range, but once again, various different types of PETG, and then like ABS, a little bit more expensive, but that's more because people are using it less than they used to, so about $17 a spool. And then it can get a little crazy on filament prices from there, especially if you're looking for something with like carbon fiber in it, but that's getting into well beyond beginner status on that. So PLA, like I was saying earlier, is one of the easiest materials to print and pretty low cost. Prints at a low temperature, and it's excellent for prototyping and making dust collectors, toys, things to set on your desk, and simple things that aren't going to be in a high temperature environment. Now, I wouldn't use it for a car or for outdoor applications in Texas, because it is low temp and it'll deform quickly. I won't talk a lot about the strength, as it depends on a lot of factors like the walls and infill, but it's generally considered weaker than most other materials. PETG is also low cost, and it's not as easy to print as it is with like PLA. It's still not necessarily hard. You do need to use some hairspray or glue stick on your print bed, not to hold the PETG in place like a lot of people think. It's not to hold it down, but it's actually to protect your print bed, to provide that little layer. Heck, if you're using an all-glass print bed, like a smooth all-glass print bed, you should use some painter's tape on it, so you don't end up like removing chunks of glass when you remove the print from the print bed. I learned that the hard way. The supports are also usually a little bit harder to remove in PETG unless your settings are extremely dialed in. But PETG, once it is printed, is much better at withstanding higher temperature environments. And most people say that it's stronger than PLA, which, it can be. But it seems to be dependent on even more factors than PLA. You really have to get those temperatures adjusted downward on your nozzle. If you find that your prints are too brittle, but there, like, overhangs are more difficult with PETG as well, and it takes a lot of cooling tweaking to get things smooth there. Too cool or too much cooling, and your layers just won't stick together. It's very difficult to find that balance to get everything dialed in correctly, especially once you start, individualizing for overhangs, bridges, and things like that. Now, ABS is one of the cheapest materials where you start requiring an enclosure. So your average Ender 3 3D printer, it might get up to temperature high enough to be able to print ABS, but you still shouldn't do it because it will warp on your print bed unless you have an enclosure. Not all printers will get hot enough to actually print it. But if you can, it is a very stable after printing, but on top of the enclosure, you also need to worry about ventilation, since it off-puts gas when heated. Like, the gas will mess you up if you're too exposed to it. And ABS also has issues in direct sunlight, but it's very good in high temperature environments. So you can put it in your car, but only if it's not going to spend a lot of time in direct sunlight. Now, lots of issues with ABS warping off of a print bed, which is why it needs that enclosure. Still, when I was using an older printer, it was the Monoprice Maker Select V2 in an enclosure. I did a lot of printing with ABS, and it came out really well. Now, for an extra credit here, I'm going to talk about TPU, which is a flexible filament. Now, this is one that I would not recommend for beginners. This one takes some work to get printing, because you have to start worrying about things like retraction and various other things. And you should wait until you have the other basics out of the way. Now, there are, like I was saying, variants of the filaments all over the place that I mentioned, and I don't think it's very worth it now to get into those. But these are the base ones, like PLA and PETG and ABS, where you can start your 3D printing journey. And also, there are a lot more knowledgeable people on YouTube that do materials testing and will tell you about every type of material out there. They do 3D printing for a living. Check them out if you want to know about all the crazy things that you can print. Also, you're basically, when you get your printer and you want to start upgrading, your first upgrades should probably be 3D printed. Different fan shrouds to help with cooling, maybe replacing fans, things like that, or stabilizers for the bottom, or a different spool holder, or stabilizers for the accesses. Probably at least some component of it is going to be 3D printed and fairly easy to find on something like Thingiverse. I don't know how well I did, starting people out on a simple for beginners.
I mean, I can imagine this being a big rabbit hole that you can go down.
I got a bit of a bonus.
Multiple.
But it sounds pretty cool.
Joe went into a few of the types of material you can use: PETG, PLA, TPU, and I was going to go over real quick what these things actually are. So PETG is polyethylene terephthalate glycol, which is, according to acmeplastics.com, a thermoplastic polymer that provides significant chemical resistance, durability, and excellent formability for manufacturing. So there you have that. That was just the first few lines. ABS, and you probably heard of ABS in other facets of use. Somebody help me here. Acrylonitrile butadiene.
You started down this road.
Oh
you can do
my!
Nailed it. That's, I mean, no notes.
Butadiene styrene. Yeah, there's that one. Moving
Stuff.
on.
It's
Moving
stuff.
swiftly on.
It just stick to ABS, and it's in so much of the stuff around you. Wherever you're sitting, if there's something plastic near you, it's probably ABS.
Yeah, TPU is thermoplastic polyurethane. So, for all of the nerds among us, and I know there's one or two nerds among us, for crying out loud.
One or two.
Yeah. It doesn't sound likely.
You reckon? You reckon?
No, I don't agree.
So there, that was my contribution.
So the answer to your question is yes, I think you did. The big one for me was the idea that you can get things that are sort of you pull it out of the box and you get started. And I could see getting something like small and modest to be able to just kind of understand the process, like to kind of get good at doing smaller things and understanding materials and things like that. And then, you know, if I'm like really into it, because I have this tendency, and I'm sure none of you do, to kind of overdo things.
No.
And so, yeah. So if I were to be modest in my approach and to kind of just say, you know, what is going to be to make sense as a starting point, and then from there, you know, try some things. Like in answer to the question, you know, that you had earlier, Majid, like I see Joe do things like, you know, create a little bracket to hang his headphones, or like, you know, just sort of, I think of like my kitchen, and there are like the way we have some of the stuff set up in the closet, like where we've got like oven racks and, you know, different like things that if I could just have a little like bracket that I could, you know, screw to the wall, you know, whatever, and just slide those in there and have it be like a divider and hold them. Like, it's such a dumb little thing, but like I could see like literally dozens of places where I can do just silly things like that. And then even from there, and that's like really simple design, really simple execution. And then you start to say, okay, well, what else can I do? I mentioned this yesterday, like the idea that you can print larger things, but you have to do it in pieces. You have to sort of break up the design. How do they interlock and like either glue together or slide together? And like what things can you actually do? Like, I just think it would be interesting to do those things. And it's rather than being something that is like fun for a couple days, or, you know, you use it a couple times and you're like, that I could see being something that is immensely useful if you took the time to really sort of understand. I think it's less about the printing, which is important to understand the limitations of hardware and how it works, and much more about like the design process and like how, you know, yes, you can get other people's designs and that's a great starting point, but then from there, like how do you sort of build those skills to be able to think about and design like anything, you know, and just sort of take it from. And I can honestly see, and I'm sure this has happened, where somebody has a 3D printer, has solved some problem for themselves, and then has decided to like iterate on that to the point where it could be productized. And then, you know, you go from small scale production that maybe you're like putting them on a website somewhere to see if people, you know, they understand they're buying a 3D printed version of something that's not going to be like flawless, like an injection mold or something. And then you kind of can actually make things that are useful for other people and potentially like make some money out of it. I mean, I could just see it being, like I said, and you know, you joked about the means of production, but it really does sort of like flatten that process that used to be like you have to go and have people build all that expensive, like the investment up front just to just to get something to a product phase is enormous.
Look,
And if you could flatten that, cut that out to the point where you're actually iterating by just literally printing another one, make a little design change, print another one, and have
you
it be
go
minimal
on-
cost, I think that's pretty cool.
if you go on YouTube right now and do some searching, you can find where people with classic cars that can't find the parts to fix their car anymore have used like high-end 3D printers to print with carbon fiber, or you can even there are some processes where you can 3D print with aluminum and made parts that are no longer in production to fix their vehicles. So yeah, the things that you can do are pretty much limitless with 3D printing, but getting started, it's a lot easier than it was a decade ago. But yeah,
It's like
don't
all these
expect
things,
to be,
isn't it? There is going to be a learning curve. There is going to be, but then that's part of the fun, isn't it?
yeah. And there are 3D printed pistols and things like that you can find, 3D printed guns, and how many rounds they shoot before they fall apart. 1,000, 1,500, and last I looked, the numbers were up in that range. And I'm not saying that it's a good idea to 3D print your own gun, but I am using it to show that you can make things that last at least some time and are complex.
Is this your way of trying to, appeal to both sides of an ideological spectrum, having just, said something very socialist and now saying something about, just joking.
No, I was just using it to show, durability and
Socialism
a gun
has
is a
to be
complex
defended
item.
with an
Yeah.
armed hand, Majid. Moving on.
Is it easier? Is it easier to go get a shotgun? Abso-friggin-lutely, but
Yeah.
Not in the UK.
That's true. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Well, anyway, yeah, I think that was really cool, and I think, like you said, Joe, where my conception of it was wrong because I still thought we were in the days of, by and large, getting sort of kits that you had to put together, and ended up being like a whole. Because like printing, obviously, you have to make sure things are, set up properly, and it's not going to work right if it's not dialed in properly, and so I could see me getting a kit and just having a terrible experience with it because it's requires a certain amount of out of the box expertise, I guess, is my point. So if I could just buy a small unit, literally unpack it and just start using it,
yeah, with the Ender 3, it's like you have the base is one part, and then like the gantry is another part. You push the two together, you screw it in, you make sure the cables are hooked up. You do have to connect the screen to it, and then mount that to the side, and it's ready to print. The Centauri Carbon, it was literally take it out of the box, remove all the packing stuff, remove the 3 screws that held the plate into position for shipping, and then turn it on and tell it to print the benchy. After loading the filament, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool that they've gotten it to that point. And I could see it being some sort of consumable part that you were using for something, being like, here's just a small version, or just enough of a printer to be able to produce those types of things, or that thing that's like a consumable part that's just sitting on the counter somewhere and spitting out copies of that thing, that ultimately it's cheaper to do it that way than to just buy them, something like that.
I've seen videos on YouTube of people that bought like $70 or $90 printers from AliExpress or whatever, and they're much smaller 3D printers, usually without a heated bed, so the only thing it'll really print is like PLA. But once you get those dialed in, evidently they'll still print. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great print, but they'll get the job done.
Yeah.
So, But one of the things that like I was showing was if you're on the YouTubes and not, just listening to the RSS, which I suppose most people are, this is just something that I took someone else's design and made my own. I had ordered some magnets from AliExpress that will fit the what's that iPhone magnetic thing that they have, and then I have the case for my phone that has it, the MagSafe, and
Mhm.
so it fits on any standard 17 millimeter ball mount,
Mhm.
and I 3D printed the threading and the screws for that as well. Put it together, and I have it attached to the little stand that I use for my second monitor. And if I want to, I can just pull my phone out and snap it right on there. And then I also have printed in PETG one for my car, and that has worked out really well, surprisingly. But I print out things like that I find useful basically all the time. Lots and lots of headphone holders, of course, and wall hooks and various other things. But yeah, I mean, I'm almost always 3D printing something.
I mean, I see you do it. You talk about it all the time, and even I think it's cool because you are printing pieces of like projects that you're working on where it's there's a broken, I don't know, piece of a headphone or something, and you're able to print a piece of that or improve on the design and take the driver and put it into a different housing and stuff like that. And
I've actually designed and 3D printed entire headsets.
yeah, and I think that's just like a really amazing capability. And I always think of like being able to like have little cases for things. Like I'm forever trying to find ways to put things, in better, to store things in a better way. And I always end up, just never quite having exactly what I want. Like, a lot of the razors and stuff that I use, like I just have sitting in drawers because there's no like great way to display them or to have them. And there are people that create like stuff on Etsy and elsewhere like that, that is just 3D printed and it fits, the certain one, and you can either have it standing up and then have a, little. It's just the ability to customize that type of stuff, and then
Your style of shaving with the safety razors and
mhm.
things like that. I've actually seen entire razors, other than the
Mhm.
blade, of course, that were
I have
3D
some.
printed.
Yeah,
And
they're not the ones I got. The person who did them, I
well,
don't think they
I've
were
seen the
very good.
STLs.
Yeah, I think they kind of used either it's sort of too flexible, and also it's just the print itself is too rough. So I think if it was done in a better quality of material and then more exacting printing, that it would probably be really, really work very well. Versus, like
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
we can make a whole nother episode on layer heights and print speeds,
Mm,
material temperatures, and how to get the effects that you're looking for. Smoothing, post-processing. I mean, we could go
yeah.
on for days.
Well, I just went and looked at the enders, and yeah, I mean they're very reasonable. I mean, for I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know which. I'd have to look at the virtues of each different one, but even the going up from the threes to the fives aren't terrible. I mean, there's a 5S1 for $299 and a 5 Plus for $429. I mean, and I know you're starting to get above the 300 threshold, but
Yeah,
still,
if you're gonna pay that much, then it's better to go with a Core XY, especially if you can get the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, which there is a backlog for, so it might take a
hmm,
while. But much faster printers, and they have a lot of your material temperatures already dialed in fairly well.
gotcha. Well, for what it's worth, I mean, on Ender's website, they or Creality, they claim to have shipped 800,000 pieces, um, or units, I guess, which is, there's definitely a strong interest in it. I mean, the accessibility, there is a 3D printer lab at my local library, and you can bring the design files and actually have them printed. But it's like any kind of shared thing. It's going to be what materials they have available and how much time they have for you to print. I think you have a limit on that kind of stuff. But the idea that it's like a service, and I've seen plenty of, actually with the razors, I was looking at different services that print for hire kind of things, and they have a network of people that just are almost like freelancers, where they just happen to have the equipment, and they'll do almost like a Fiverr thing or something. Like they have the equipment and they're just on a registry, like a website, and you can search for what material, how big something is, and different things like that.
That's an interesting business model.
You didn't know about that?
I did not.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to you.
No, I know about like printing services, like places with print farms.
Yeah,
and
no, it's
print
distributed.
services.
Yeah, I forget. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But yeah, it's a print for hire kind of thing.
That's really cool.
And it's like a Fiverr, almost like a Fiverr service. Yeah, basically.
See, I wouldn't want to, in that one, I wouldn't want to be the person doing the printing. I would be the one that was providing everybody with access to all the people that were printing, because essentially you're getting paid to do nothing but be a middleman and point people to other people.
Gotcha. And actually, it's funny I said Fiverr, because Fiverr is one of the first, UPS store, first of all, is the first entry, which I think is interesting. So they offer custom printing, and then Fiverr, Print a Thing. Like there's different sites that offer that. But yeah, 3D Jobber. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots of I guess that's just sort of like a little gig economy thing, where if you have the equipment and the expertise and can print things to it, because that's really, like I said, the biggest thing is the material that you're able to print, limited on the devices you have, and then also the quality and being able to dial it in so that you're getting a really high quality print takes skill. It takes some practice, and I found that there are lots of people that are willing to do things like that, but a lot of the ones that I've worked with were just sort of like didn't really know what they were doing, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
not working with professionals.
Well, I mean, like I said, I just think it takes time to be able to do it at a level that is worth paying for, I guess. So,
okay, unless anybody else has any questions or statements. And I think that's it.
Well, if nothing else, we'll move on to check this out. And this week we've got, Charles actually put this in, but he can't be here with us today. So, Majid, you got the second seat on this one?
I was going to read this. Basically, a overview of passkeys. Saying goodbye to passwords, and an explanation of what passkeys are. It means that you have a private key which is stored on a secure location on your phone or your laptop, and each device needs to have a separate public-private pair, meaning that key pairs can't be chained across devices. Linux isn't set up for this yet, but you either have to use a browser or password safe or a YubiKey type device. On Android, it's definitely around. I've been using it on a couple of especially for the kind of financial apps and things like that. I was a bit resistant to it at first, because I was a bit like, ooh, how safe is it? But they seem to be all right. So yeah, there's a little video about that. I don't know if any of you guys have used passkeys yet, or have any particular burning thoughts on it.
Very limited. Just
I use it through Bitwarden, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
I think
so. So that's in the check this out.
I pay for the Bitwarden, so when that whole thing started to pick up steam, I gave it a shot. Yeah, I mean it's kind of an extension on the whole key pair. It helps to understand the concept. Maybe we should do a show on encryption, basic concepts.
Yeah,
that'll
be a good innards, actually.
Because I think I don't know that the average person has a marvelous concept of the idea of key pairs and what the difference between.
Well, I mean, even in general, when I was researching couple of months ago about different cloud services and end-to-end encryption. I found that not all end-to-end encryption is created the same,
No.
which was a surprise to me at the time. So yeah, I think be a good innards to have at some point, I think.
Yeah, and not all key pairs. I mean, because you can use different encryption algorithms for the key pairs, and there's different ways of handling them in that. They're not all created equal. But, yeah, it might be interesting to get into. But, yeah, check out that video. It's linked in the full show notes, and the show notes, of course, are linked in the show description. But at any rate, moving on to vibrations from the ether, and we have a letter here from Dale for Joe. Joe, you want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah, I'll take
a letter. A letter. What was it? Posted with a stamp?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Okay, Dale sends, hello, Joe. Here's what I've been using for my note-taking and syncing between my phone and computers. For Android, I've been using Markor. It is a nice editor that supports Markdown and other formats. It has many other features. It is available from F-Droid. And then he provides a GitHub link for that. For syncing, I've been using SyncThing on both my computers and Android. It is available in many of the Linux repos. If you want the most recent, it's available from their website. There is also an unofficial Android version. For some reason, the development of the official version stopped, and he posts a link for that and the GitHub version of Android. As far as a Linux Markdown editor, I haven't settled on anything yet. I'm currently using Genie using the Markdown plugin. It should be available in the repos, and he provides the link. And then a couple of YouTube videos on getting started with it. I hope these solutions work for you. Regards, Dale. Thank you, Dale. And we can discuss that more next time you're on the show. And then I also got another donation on Ko-fi from Juanski. I hope I said that right. And he said in the donation, I just wanted to drop a quick note to let you know how much I appreciate mintCast. My greatest appreciation to you and the team for all the effort required to make this happen. And I just want to say thank you. And thank you to everybody that has donated on my Ko-fi. I really appreciate it. It really does help keep me motivated, and it goes towards my next project. It's set up to be used with anything I purchase on eBay, and I can also switch it over. And if I'm buying a project on like Amazon or something like that, I can use it there. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And this was the largest donation that I've had so far. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't know why I've taken so long to get something going with something like Patreon or whatnot, because we could use. The reality is that we've never asked for money on this show, not outright as a show, you know, but these shows are not free to.
I have. I want loads of money. Give me, and give them now.
Just mail me a check. But they're not free. I've hesitated because you never. Gosh. Money is just such a taboo topic, and it really shouldn't be. But it
usually
kind
one of
is.
us will jump in and like pay for the hosting or whatever,
Yeah.
depending on who has money at the time. I think it's been Bill the last couple of times because he's Bill.
He's loaded.
I mean, it's just easier. Actually, it's been about 3 years now, but okay. You know, yeah, I guess I paid by the
but it
year.
is a fair point. It is a fair point, you know, that, you know, these things aren't free. And whilst, yes, I don't think we want to go around talking for money, at the same time, you know, if people would like to donate and help keep the lights on, as they say, in the Linux labs, then that would be, you know, would be good if we could give people a avenue for which they could do that.
You know, and there's been some. I'd like to get
I
some
accept
input.
Bitcoin, by the way.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing. I'm not so sure. There's been some argument, and that's probably the biggest reason I haven't moved forward. There's been some disagreement on the appropriate direction to take with relevance to
I mean, I
where
think
we should get our money from.
I think Patreon is
Well, that's where
completely
most people
transparent.
are at, right? You know, but there are some opinions about Patreon, isn't there? But then again, you have more people on Patreon, so if you want to be where the people are at, my opinion is you've got to go where the people are at. You know, you can't expect them to come to you just because you have reservations or whatnot. But that's just been my thing. I don't know. We should probably.
Well, people can tell us. People can tell us. You know,
Yeah,
they can
you know,
email and
let us know.
message and tell us what we should do.
Let us know if you would. If we were just set up, I would like to get some interest. You know, what have you all got to say about funding for this show? Because it would help in the long run. Because there are things, you know, electricity for the servers is not free. The internet for the servers is not free. That kind of thing. I mean,
The servers were not free.
the servers themselves were not free, although I probably would have done that anyway, to be honest. But yeah, you know, I hate asking for money. I always have. You know, we will never stop making this show because we feel. I mean, I think I can speak for all of us that we feel kind of an emotional imperative to keep this thing going because it's been around for such a long time and we care about the things that we talk about deeply, you know. And so even if we have to shovel the bill, even if we have 3 people listening to this show, we will keep it going because those 3 people care about what we talk about. So that's all I've got to say about that. So
Well, I mean, I don't think any of us ever expect to make anything financially. Like, there's no gain to this other than to just be doing it for the entertainment value. And, you know, frankly, we're all people who would get together and hang out and talk anyway. So I think the whole point is that we are talking about something we enjoy, and at best it's a service to the community that people value to some degree, you know, at least some amount. At worst, it's like we're just like talking to each other and no one cares. But I mean, I really like to believe, and I know we've asked people to give us feedback and almost no one does, which is always a disappointment because the least I like the social contract or whatever I kind of feel like is if we're putting the time and effort into putting this out and people are willing, you know, are listening to it, like I would just like to think that, you know, just please reach out you don't have to say anything meaningful. Just like, hey, I'm actually out here, and yes, we are actually listening, and we like this or we don't like this, or, you know, I mean, it's just nice to know that, you know, you're not just talking to yourself, basically.
I mean, we've got numbers. We can see that people are listening. We can see that people are watching.
No, I understand that.
And
I'm
know
not saying, I just
the ability
but feedback, you know, getting feedback, whether it's positive, negative, whatever, anything, do you know what I mean, is good. You know, if somebody wants to, as I said, somebody wants to come on and say, "Imagine you're a stupid noob, sod off." That's fair. I'll still like to see that and hear that. You know,
I'm pretty sure I've said that before.
Yes, you don't count. Yeah, you
don't count.
I did that. That's how I ended up here.
exactly.
Yeah.
See?
Oh, I ended up here.
You know, when we ask for hosts, that's when we get the huge spike in feedback. So maybe we should just ask for hosts every single show.
But we always want more hosts.
We do.
That's
we
what
actually
Saturday
do.
show's all about.
I'll tell you what. If you show up on Roundtable, which, by the way, Roundtable, the weekends, the Saturdays opposite the weekends that we do the show, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Discord. If you show up and you sound good and you've got a good opinion, then you're going to get sniped. You're going to get grabbed. You're going to get swooped up on the show.
Even if we disagree with you, we'll probably still ask you onto the main show just with a different opinion.
We need some conflicting opinions, I think, every now and then, you know, because we tend to agree a lot. So
even if you just want to come on
I disagree with that comment. I disagree with that comment.
Yes, even if you just want to get on and say, quit talking politics, move on with the tech stuff.
I think
we're okay with that.
Right.
I think that
do we ever talk politics? Do we do that?
Not after the beginning.
Yeah, not by choice. I think it's That's what Leo's here for, by the way. He's our little chaos.
He's a chaos engine, isn't he?
You should come back on the show then.
Well,
Mr.
no.
Contrarian.
No, he's done his time. He doesn't have to come back on. He's in the comments right now. He's still
He should
here.
still come back on the show. That would bring in the listeners.
Yeah. Did we lose
Yeah,
some people?
it improved the glamour quotient anyway.
Oh, all right. Well, let's
You know
move
us
on.
Texans.
Housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see or hear of something that you'd like to hear us talk about, tell us. Please do. Send us an email, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us on YouTube, live that is. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram. Links to all of those in the show notes. Our next episode will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, August 31st, 2025. And there's a link to get that converted to your time zone in the show notes. Next Saturday, we will host a roundtable live stream. Please come and join us using the Discord voice channel at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. Wrapping up, Joe, where can we get more of you?
Well, I am on a couple of other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is at tllts.org. I'm also on the Linux Lugcast, sometimes with Eric. That's at linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly. I do try to respond to most of them, jb@mintcast.org. Or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi in the show notes. Once again, thank you to everybody that has donated.
Moss couldn't be with us, but if you want to get a hold of him or catch some more of him, he's on Full Circle Weekly News. There's a link to that in the show notes. You can email him. He's moss@bodielinux.com. His Mastodon is @Zyvola@hosttux.social. And he is occasionally on Hacker Public Radio. You can email me. I'm bill@mintcast.org. I'm bill_H on Discord. I'm at WCHauser3 at fostodon.org on Mastodon. Also, check out my other two shows. I'm on Linux OTC with Eric and Majid, and also Three Fat Truckers. Links to both of those in the show notes as well. Majid?
So you can email me at drmajid@mintcast.org. I'm on Mastodon at atypical_doctor, atypical doctor on Instagram and Threads, and the Atypical Doctor podcast. I've had 2 episodes in the last 10 days, so one of them with Alan Pope. So I hope people get a chance to listen to that. It was a good conversation. And I'm also on Linux OTC with William and Eric. Speaking of Eric.
Yeah, the easiest thing for me is I can be reached at email at eric@mintcast.org, and if I'm pretty much on any social media that you can think of under just Eric Adams. So, and Charles isn't here. He can be reached at charles@mintcast.org. And Jim, go ahead.
My email is jim@mintcast.org. I use GNU to Linux on the Discord channel. I also have a Mastodon account, the Linux shortcut at fostodon.org, and you can check out some occasional Linux and tech related podcasts of my own on YouTube at the Linux shortcut.
Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. I, for one, handle the audio editing, and I host the server which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our raw show notes and raw audio. There's nothing like listing your own accolades for the whole world to come by and observe and admire. Archive.org for hosting our audio files, Hopstar for our logo, and NetRD for our animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions. Last but not least, the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about. Thanks, Clam.
Thanks, Clem. And Co.
And Co.
And
And that's a
Co.
wrap.
wrap. Thanks everybody in the live stream. We'll see you in 2 weeks.